By the way, guys, on my CNC machine build, I'm now planning to use upholstery thread as the chain for linear actuation of the CNC axes. So, in the case of a 3D printer, you use a timing belt and a geared pulley system. The timing belt has little teeth in it. It's a rubber belt, and the pulleys turn, and they have gears on them, and the gears line up with the teeth of the belt, and they turn the belt. I'm going to just use string. That's free, and basically your motor will just have the string wound up on it in two different directions. And as the motor turns, one direction's releasing the string and one direction's feeding the string. And yeah, I mean, you pretty much just need string. So that's how I'm going to do it. It's going to work great. And I'm basically using the same concept for the robot's muscles. So yeah, it's pretty cool. You don't need a timing belt or a strong chain or anything. Just need good string. And I might have to use like 4 or 5 strings woven together for extra strength. I might not want to weave them together though, because that might make them too stretchy. As the weave tightens, it will have too much give. So actually, I might just keep them all taut, but just have them running parallel, and that way the weight can be a little better distributed across them. Because it's going to be a bit heavy, I think. Not too bad, but a bit on the heavy side. So that should take care of it. So yeah, that's a nice money saving method for me. I have to say though, I might need to buy some servo motors. Well, I'm not sure. You know, it would be ideal to use my 3D printing stepper motors from my 3D printer kit, which I haven't built yet. It'd be ideal to use those motors. If I geared them down enough, I think they would work. It'd be slower, but it'd save a lot of money over buying some big old stepper motors. Those are like for a kit, a 4 stepper motor kit for the big boys, the NEMA 23s. No, NEMA 23s are the cheap one. The big NEMA motors, the ones like this, those would be ideal for me. But to buy those, it's like 4 of those plus your power supply for those is like $220 for that kit. But if I use my 3D printer motors, then I already have it. It's free. And that was only $100, but they're much smaller motors. But the thing is with motors, you can gear them down, make them slower, but stronger, based on leverage. So if you create a pulley system, you can magnify the force of very little force to generate a large amount of output. Just like they said, if you give me a long enough lever, I can actually lift the Earth. Like some philosopher said that. Like he can lift the planet Earth with his own strength if you gave him a long enough lever. That is physically possible because of the way leverage works. So I could theoretically do it, but it'd be slower. If you have a weak motor trying to lift a heavy load, you have to gear it down so much that it's going to lift that load very slowly. And I guess that would be okay to start out, but I eventually probably would want to upgrade to a bigger motor. But I feel like it might be fine to do it that way at the beginning. So I might actually do it that way. Plus, I could use 2 of those motors to double down the strength. We're just talking the vertical is going to be hard. Like all the horizontal stuff shouldn't require too much motor power, I don't think. Especially if there's good like low friction bearings or something in place. There shouldn't be much effort required of the motor to turn the different feeders and stuff. So yeah, I think we'll be good with a 3D printer kit, which means I can get started on that right away with materials I have in hand. That's my goal. I always like to try to use materials on hand rather than have to go out and buy materials, because I'm trying to keep the cost of my projects down. I don't want to have it so expensive that I have to create a savings goal to do it. The robot's not going to be a fail if you use string. If the upholstery string is not strong enough, and it is 100% nylon string, nylon is very strong. In fact, nylon is the material used in climbing rope, rock climbing. Uh, Nylon is also used for fishing line. Nylon is an excellent selection for string. Um, will it over time wear down and snap? Sure, maybe. But you would expect to have to do maintenance, no different than an engine pulley on a car engine. The serpentine belt eventually needs to be replaced. No matter what material you choose, it will need to eventually be replaced. So, especially when it comes to tensile strength, when you're dealing with pulling, even chains have to be replaced. If you have like a hauling business, you're pulling things by chain, like pulling down trees for a lumber business. Even those chains eventually will snap. Even if they're made of steel wire, those need to be replaced. So, replacing stuff is part of the game. If the upholstery thread isn't strong enough, I can create several of them, like 10, in parallel with one another, all pulling at the same time for certain muscle groups that require a tremendous amount of tensile force. So it's not a matter of if the string will work, it's a matter of like, is there something better? And I would say there's not. There's a possibility that fishing line would be better, but it's not as flexible and it's a little harder to work with. It's harder to like tie it in knots and stuff, especially when you get into the heavier gauge fishing line. I mean, you can, but I think it's easier to work with string. It knots better. So I'm willing to experiment with other stuff if upholstery thread doesn't work, but at the end of the day, even fishing line it's just a single fiber of nylon, as opposed to upholstery thread, which is woven nylon into a thread. Both cases, it's 100% nylon, so it's really a matter of which one holds up the best. For my testing, my nylon upholstery thread has like 80 pounds before it actually snaps in half. 80 pounds is pretty good, especially if you then can take like 10 of them in parallel, all pulling at the same time. That's 80 times 10. That's 800 pounds it can handle. That's pretty darn good strength, if you ask me.